The Pumpkin of Terror. Have you ever heard of the legend of the Pumpkin of Terror? No? Then it's best not to get involved. The story begins on a rainy Halloween night, when a group of friends decided to explore the forest around the town. They had heard of a pumpkin, an artifact forgotten for generations, said to have sinister powers. The strangest part: whoever touched it disappeared without a trace. Fear held them back, but they were curious. As they neared the clearing where the pumpkin lay, a chilling sensation ran down their spines. Something was watching them. Something that would never let them go. The clearing was silent, except for the sound of rain hitting the dry leaves. In the center, the pumpkin was there, with an eerie light emanating from within. It wasn't a normal light. It pulsated, as if it had a life of its own. Around it, strange symbols were etched, as if a pact had been sealed. The group stood frozen, overwhelmed by the feeling that something greater was at play, something even the oldest of the town dared not mention. When one of them impulsively touched the pumpkin, a scream echoed through the forest. It was the sound of indescribable fear. What did it mean? What had happened? They didn't know. But the pumpkin wanted them. The next morning, one of the friends was gone. There were no signs, nothing that indicated where he could be. Just the absolute silence of the forest, and the pumpkin, still glowing in its clearing. The rest of the group was now desperate, unable to comprehend what had happened. The authorities searched, but found nothing. Then, an enigmatic message appeared on the wall of one of the missing friends' room. "She calls you." Who sent this? And what did it mean? The town was uneasy. Children whispered about the pumpkin and how it chose who touched it. And each night, the disappearances continued. In the old town library, Marta, a curious student, found an old book that spoke of Hollow Creek, a town known for its mysteries. The book revealed a terrifying story about a cursed pumpkin. It was said that, in ancient times, a ritual had been performed to summon an unknown being that fed on souls, and the instrument was always a pumpkin, forged on a full moon night. As she tried to make a connection, Marta found something even more unsettling. Her grandmother's name was written in the book, and she had never mentioned what had happened in her youth. Marta felt she was closer than she realized, but what would happen when she knew the whole truth? After weeks of research, Marta decided to return to the clearing, alone, in search of answers. When she arrived, the pumpkin seemed different, brighter, more alive. It was as if it had been waiting for her. With growing fear, Marta approached it. Suddenly, shadowy figures began to appear around her. They were the missing friends, or at least, their shadows. Their faces were distorted, with empty eyes and mouths that whispered incomprehensible words. One of the shadows whispered her name. Marta froze, her breath faltering. Who were these beings? How had they returned? And more importantly, what did they want from her? The presence of the pumpkin became unbearable. Marta felt her mind being invaded, as if something was connecting with her, something ancient and malevolent. The shadows began to approach, their cold hands touching her skin. She tried to pull away, but an invisible force prevented her from leaving. The ground beneath her opened, and she fell into a black abyss. When she woke up, she was in a strange place, a kind of ethereal prison, where the voices of the disappeared echoed endlessly. What was this place? And how had she been brought here? The whisper in the darkness said only one thing: you now belong to her. But who was she? Over time, Marta realized she was not alone in this place. Something watched her from the shadows, a being that seemed to know everything about her, but at the same time, knew nothing. On a stormy night, the pumpkin appeared in the dark room where she was, now in a grotesque form, more deformed and alive than ever. She finally understood: the pumpkin was the portal, and whoever touched it became part of its domain. But was there an exit? Maybe, but the price would be steep. Suddenly, the shadowy figure appeared, with fiery eyes. Accept your fate, or perish with the others. Marta trembled, knowing that time was running out. Marta knew the pumpkin was tied to something much deeper, something impossible to untangle. In the depths of the place where she was trapped, a horrible truth revealed itself. All the disappeared were trapped there, their souls consumed, but their minds still wandering. They were guardians of eternal terror. What remained for Marta was a choice: stay and become another shadow of terror, or destroy the pumpkin and free the others, but at the cost of her own soul. But what was the right path? She didn't know. The terror of the options consumed her as the clock of eternity ticked. Marta felt her soul being sucked away, as if she was on the verge of being lost forever. Time was almost up, but she couldn't make a decision. The pumpkin was now in front of her, its light pulsing furiously, and a deep voice, full of pain, echoed in her mind: "Make your choice now. Or you die, or you will live like us." What would she do? Submit to the darkness, or fight until the end? The clock stopped. What remained were only choices that would lead to one inevitable end. But what would it be? No one knew. Marta didn't resist. She touched the pumpkin. What happened next? No one ever knew. The report of her death was a mix of rumors, but one thing was certain: she was never seen again. In the town, terror never ceased, and each year, new disappearances occurred. Children now whisper at night, "The pumpkin is waiting for someone." But who? And then, like a distant scream, someone begins to ask, "What if it was you?"
Have you ever experienced something unexplainable and terrifying? A supernatural encounter, a real event that left you speechless, a chilling moment that shook you to your core, or witnessed something so macabre it still sends shivers down your spine? Your story could be the next to haunt the world. The most frightening, intriguing, and mysterious tales could be featured on the channel, immortalized for other horror lovers with all the suspense and terror they deserve. Your experience could be the next to captivate thousands. Do you dare to share?